I think it's already time for us to proceed with our the second and the last academic session for the today's uh, web-based conference. Before we start off, a brief note. As we all know that the Institute of Social and Cultural Studies as an autonomous organization for over a decade now has been addressing history as well as contemporary over a wide range of national and international events, publications, and set of regular writings. Thus, as a part of Institute's endeavor, in collaboration with the University of Mumbai and the Jawaharlal Nehru Rajkiya Mahavidyalaya JNRM Port Blair, we have been able to host a day-long web-based conference on a very interesting issues on Indian ocean security challenges and strategies. We did have inaugural session and also the first session. The inaugural session was addressed by the Honorable Minister of Education, Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, along with other distinguished guests. The first session gave us a brief idea about how Indian Ocean is a stage for policy, power and diplomacy. And therefore we move on to the next, which is the final one. The second academic session would deal with how our IORA could be a force for strengthening maritime cooperation and security coordination. As we all know that this conference has been represented by 7 country representatives. So we do have national and international speakers in this session too. Before I hand it over to the chair, I would like to introduce all of us. For the chair of the proposed session, we have Professor Rajesh Kharat, Director, School of International and Strategic Studies, University of Mumbai. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us and also enabling Institute to coordinate such a wonderful and a meaningful conference. It has been a relentless effort from your side. IACS takes this privilege to thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Amongst the distinguished speaker, it's an honor to have former Ambassador Dhaneshwar Mule, former High Commissioner of India, Maldives, and member of National Human Rights Commission. Thank you so much, sir, for being with us this session. We have Dr. Maharaja with us all the way joining from South Africa. Dr. Maharaja is a nodal head of Department of Science and Technology and National Research Foundation Center of Excellence in Scientometric and Science. He's also a Chief Director of the Institute for Economic Research on Innovation at Techuan University of Technology Associate Research, Fellow of TELUS Institute in Boston, Chairperson of South Africa Node of Millennium Project. Thank you so much, sir. It's a privilege to have you today. We have Dr. Chulani Attanaik with us joining. Ma'am, are you placed in Singapore right now? Okay, but ma'am would also highlight the issues from a Sri Lankan perspective, I believe. So Dr. Chulani Attanaik is a research fellow from Institute of South Asian Studies, National University of Singapore. A warm welcome to you all. We also have Dr. Rashida Muhammad Didi, independent lecturer and researcher, Maldives. I think she has some network issues, but I'm sure ma'am would also join us soon. Before I hand it over to chair, I would like to request all the participants to keep your microphone on a muted mode unless and until you're speaking or there's a discussion session or something is being posed from your side. Secondly, after the deliberation, we are likely to have a small discussion session. For your questions to be answered, please write your question, mention the name of the speakers you want your questions to be addressed. You can raise hands after the deliberation or put it on the chat box and send it to us so that our respective chair can take it, can address the questions one by one. And this, the entire conference of today, which is being organized by IACS in collaboration with University of Mumbai and JNRM Port Blair, would be available on YouTube. So please do like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, IACS India. Now, I would like to take this privilege to hand over the session to Professor Kharat. Over to you, sir. You need to unmute your microphone.
Yes. Thank you once again, Konkana, and thank you all the member panelists. Such a high profile personalities are here in this panel, second panel, and this is a very interesting panel because as I see the IDSA, Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, used to come out with a newsletter combined with the South Asia and Indian Ocean, and it was continued almost 1991, 1992. Suddenly it was disappeared. Why it was disappeared, I don't know. What are the reason? It was the impact of the Cold War or something. One has to really study that, because it was one of the important document. Based on that, many research, PhDs, MPhils and projects have been completed. This is a one point. Secondly, today is 2021, and I still remember 1971. The Indian Ocean was always in a conflict zone, whether it should be a conflict zone or the peace zone. And Sri Lanka, the former Sri Lankan Prime Minister Sirimao Bandaranaike, who has proposed the resolution for Indian Ocean should be a zone of peace in the United Nations, and it was also passed in December 1971. But then later on, what has happened, why these things happened, and we are continually almost last 50 years. Now suddenly 2021, Indian Ocean, we are discussing the security challenges, strategies and number of other issues. Because in the Indian Ocean, the IORA, Indian Ocean Theme Association, the member countries, they are so dear to us. We can begin with the Sri Lanka, Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, Marshall Islands, Trinidad, Tobago, Suriname, where we have the Indian diaspora living. And India always has interest, not only to see how the things are happening in this country, but also they are also concerned about the Indian diaspora who are living in these countries, and what happened about these small countries who are part of the boundaries of the Indian Ocean. So these issues, I think we should discuss in the coming deliberation by the high profile people and the former delegates, diplomats, and who are researcher individual country. Thirdly, now in the first session, Admiral Shekhar Sinha said it is about the security and strategy, but we should go beyond the security and strategy. Now the climate change, environment concerns are there, trade and policy, the sea routes. Are we going to have the safe sea route for all the Indian Ocean association countries? How you can develop your economic growth? Even the concepts I can see. After Indian Ocean, suddenly there was a Southeast Asian nation, major focus on Southeast Asian nation. Then later on, the concept again changed into Indo-Pacific region. Now we are discussing Indian Ocean Rim Association or the Indian Ocean security strategies. Why these changes have taken place in the couple of years. So these are the issues I hope will be addressed by the member panelists. And with these words, I thank once again for allowing me to say a few words and hosting this seminar. I request one of the senior member of panelists, the Ambassador Daneshwar Mule sir, who was India's High Commissioner to Maldives and holding a very key position in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. With this, I request Mule sir, please come to the.
Well, thank you, Professor Kharat. Thank you, Kankana, for that nice introduction of all of us. It's a pleasure and privilege to be among such a wonderful panelists and wonderful chairperson. Thank you so much. So just to give you a brief background, I was in Maldives during 2013 and 29 and 2013, about 4 years plus. And I did have the opportunity to handle some of these issues, not everything, as being the High Commissioner there. And therefore my knowledge, while is first-hand, it is more or less limited to Maldives. I do feel that Maldives is a very important country for us. However small in terms of population, its strategic importance is enormous. I'm glad that Madam Rashida Didi is present here, though I can't see her right now, but she would be joining anytime, I believe, and she would be able to highlight. What I'll do is, in briefly, just highlight some of the strategic points that need to be considered when we think of Indian Ocean maritime security and cooperation. Obviously, in today's world, no country is an island, even though Maldives is a country primarily of islands. Strangely, it's also become a very delicate country, not only from the environment point of view, because if the planet's temperature goes higher by 2 degrees, then entire Maldives will be submerged. And not only entire Maldives, but also major parts of India will also be submerged, and so also will be the fate of Sri Lanka. So when we think of security and safety cooperation, it's now war footing. Most scientists now agree that the world is really destroying itself, and particularly vulnerable islands and countries really need to look at it once again very carefully. And countries like India, which are big in size, have a special responsibility in terms of bringing everyone together and doing things to help each other. It's not that Maldives will submerge means India is going to be spared. Indian coastal areas will be not only badly affected, but perhaps hugely submerged also. So that being the case, and obviously Seychelles and other smaller places in the Indian Ocean will certainly be affected because of this. Coming to Maldives, it's a very fascinating country, partly because it has really very little land, only 300 square kilometers, and 1192 odd islands spread across 96,000 square kilometers. I don't think there are many countries which have this kind of a geography or this kind of a topography. That being the case, while coastal security we can talk about, how do we really manage coastal security of a country which is divided really into 1192 islands, and it is really has a population of 450,000 or 5 lakh at the most. So it is very clear that Maldives alone cannot really solve its own problems. The other important thing about Maldives to remember is Maldives is one country which is 100% Islamic country by the constitution itself. No other religion or faith can be practiced in Maldives. Idols are not allowed in the country. And even though there is a large expatriate population, they can only practice their religion to themselves, or maybe in the closed rooms. There is no public practice is allowed. So it has very strict rules. Now, what has happened is, because of this very nature of the country's constitution, limited to one religion, there are also extremist elements in the country. It is said that per 100,000 population, Maldives has exported largest number of extremists to Middle East during the so-called ISIS struggle. There are very clearly in the past instances where extremist groups under anonymity of that is provided by Maldivian islands have come there and had meetings also. And as I said, the nature of the country is such that if somebody comes and goes, it's not very easy to really find out who has entered and who has left the country. So that is a second point. Third is, of course, the democracy that came in 2008 has not yet taken its roots. Democracy is still very fragile. It's often attacked. There is a party which really professes Islamic, Sharia law, and Sharia law and democratic laws do not always go hand in hand. There is conflict, and sometimes there are elements that can very easily disturb the peace. Now, these characteristics typically affect the entire security environment, not of the country alone, but also of the region. And therefore, actually, it was really during my time that we proposed India, Maldives, Sri Lanka cooperative effort, which is now picked up. which is now picked up. And hello, can I call later? I'm in a meeting. It has now picked up, and we've had this meeting recently of India, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, for maritime cooperation and security matters. Bilaterally, India does have fairly strong interaction with Maldives. There is often talk of Indian boots on Maldivian islands, but that need not be given any credentials or credit because India has no intention. It has not really had anything to do with that. Yes, cooperation between the two countries and need-based assistance has been provided. 1988 was a good example when India came to the rescue of Maldives and President Gayoom was rescued. He was under imminent threat, of mercenaries who came from Sri Lanka. One of the Sri Lankan Tamil groups sent mercenaries, and India was able to save the country, save the establishment and the government of the time. And of course, India subsequently withdrew from that country. Currently, we have joint maritime exercises, we have land exercises, we have coastal survey cooperation. We also have what we called oceanography cooperation. There is a lot of assistance being given to Maldives, but obviously a third angle, third dimension could be Sri Lanka coming together. If Sri Lanka, Maldives, and India really work effectively in these countries, then some of the issues, and these issues really are, there is a threat of piracy because of the region's vulnerability. There is certainly increasing Chinese presence that you find in all the sea routes all over the world, but certainly this has been one of their focus area. It needs to be at least watched, countered, observed, and therefore this cooperation too becomes very very important. Just now the chairperson mentioned about the sea routes, again a very important matter. So India and Maldives have identified India, Maldives, Sri Lanka have identified 4 pillars to work, and this is about trafficking, cyber security, drugs, and sea lines, security of the sea lines, and joint military exercises. And these seem to be moving all right, even though at a slow pace. There is a lot of scope. These countries, 3 countries together, can do a lot. There is slowly some interest of the Quad, Maldives cooperation also, which one has seen moving to some extent, though there is no concrete outcome to that. Indian Ocean as a zone of peace has been championed by President Gayoom in the past, and some mention of that was mentioned just now also. So these are some of the issues that need to be identified, and a close cooperation, particularly considering that India does want to play a larger role, both by India itself as well as by many countries, including United States. We also have what we call Indo-Pacific cooperation picking up now. It will also directly be also, what should I say, in a sense, it has some relevance to our discussion, because if you have Indo-Pacific and Indian Ocean security can be considered in totality, then maybe the countries might be able to find a new direction of collaboration and cooperation. This time I will pause here, and maybe I spoke a little longer than it was necessary, but one can join again as per the desire and as per the overall proceedings of this conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your enlightened debate, and you raise a very prominent and important issues about Maldives, India, and all these Indian Ocean. Now, may I request Dr. Maharaja, Rashigan Maharaja, You can have your session, please. Can you hear me, Dr. Rashigan Maharaja?
Greetings, colleagues. I can hear you. I'm just having a little technical issue trying to get the screen to come up. I want to show my presentation. Excellent. If that's all right with the colleagues, yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very much, whomever's done this. So I'm very grateful to the organizers, ISC, and I want to take you through a presentation contributing to the discussion that has started already. So I acknowledge all of the comments being made. I'm very grateful to the colleague that's actually showing the slides there. And I want to emphasize through this presentation and intervention that I'm making, that I really think as we move through this century that's in front of us, we need to seriously relook and rethink some of the lessons that we've accumulated to date. Why? Because our circumstances have changed and the context itself remains dynamic. And within that, we have much to gain from embracing each other as a third of humanity, as opposed to merely following pathways to development. And colleagues, I'm sure all of you are well aware, that have generated the type of contradictions, the type of crises, and in fact, the catastrophes that now face us. Colleagues, if you could move the slide forward, please. Yeah. So we've come a long way in terms of getting to where we are today. You know, according to the best of our scientific knowledge, at least, we have about 4.5 billion years of evolutionary history behind us. And I must say, I feel, like someone had mentioned earlier, a little embarrassed to be of our species when we look at that long history behind us and look at where we are today and the type of crises that we ourselves are not only generating, but we are perpetuating and reproducing across world systems. Yeah. Our biodiversity is under extreme threat. We are part of that biodiversity. It is not a question of us versus nature. We are nature itself. And so when we take those evolutionary facts about ourselves and we contrast it with that little diagram which shows gross domestic product per capita, how is it that we can understand that ourselves as a species being, the last extent of our species, 7.7 billion of us, allow ourselves to conform to the inequality established over the last few hundred years, and then continue forward as if this situation allows us to meet the planetary crises that confronts us. So, colleagues, if you could move the slide forward, please. Yeah. So, very much like I think two of our colleagues have already raised, and even in the introduction itself, I want to re-emphasize the 1971 resolution of United Nations and how it was then picked up in 1973 and encouraged that we actually draw on strengthening regional and international security by making the Indian Ocean a hub for such activities. There are many other comments that I'd like to make about that, but not at this stage. But I would draw people's attention to the very different form of history that enjoins the peoples of the Indian Ocean Rim, as opposed to the violence that characterizes the Atlantic route, especially for those of us from Africa that are part of this engagement. Colleagues, if you'd move the slide forward, please. Yeah. So this is just a listing of the membership of our association as Indian Ocean Rim Research Group. You'd see the 23 member states and then the observer states next to that. But importantly as well, I want, please, if you would pay a little attention to one of the founding fathers of this association, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, whose encouragement was that we embrace the social economy, the society and the economy that we derive in terms of also seeking to redress the challenges that confront the peoples of the territory. If we'd move ahead, please. Yeah. So in this, there is a lot of potential that we know links us together. And it's also because we share this geophysical reality. Yeah? But that geophysical reality then gets engendered by our own perspectives, our own thoughts that get applied. Hence, under the priority areas, I want to just emphasize on the academic and scientific cooperation. I think other colleagues are dealing with other areas itself. But I want to emphasize this, the potential for innovation, for redressing unemployment and underemployment, and ensuring resilience in the face, especially of the IPCC report just released, forces upon us an important element of rethinking where we are and where we're moving ahead. Colleagues, if you'd move the slide, please. Yeah. So here, just an example of this. And I'm going to show just 2 or 3 of these to give people a sense of the type of early warnings based on scenarios, based on data that we are accumulating. But I want to ask, why is it that I'm going to be showing you pictures that come from sources from the northwest quadrant of the world system? Why isn't this coming out of our neighborhood? Why isn't it shared proudly as Indian Ocean Rim products itself? The threats that we face and starting to protect us, is that not the basis of the peace and security we want to see? Colleagues, can we move ahead, please? Slide. Thank you. As you know, food underpins and lays the basis for our very existence as a species itself. And so here's just an estimate from IFPRI regarding changes in wheat production. And you can see the entire value chains as we know it, as we've known it through history, since the origins of our civilizational forms, is undergoing rapid and accelerated change. How are we going to engage with this? I remind colleagues, I am from a continent of over 1 billion people. And I'm sure, colleagues, this is not a competitive point, but we know the UN projections going forward. In a short while, India's population exceeds that of the People's Republic of China. But both of those 2 states are going to be overtaken by Africa as a continent. Yeah? And the type of precarity that configures African lives needs serious attention from all of us. Colleagues, if we move ahead, please. Yeah. So already in terms of and this is just a summary, colleagues, please be encouraged. There's over 4,000 pages worth of data that people need to go through. And that's just from the first of 6 reports from the IPCC. This is going to keep us all busy, but it's very important that we draw down the lessons from this for all the work that we are doing. We cannot turn a blind eye to what's happening to our house and then expect our neighborhood to be safe itself, colleagues. If we move ahead, a slide, please. Yeah. So, and drawing specifically to our area and territory, there are specific reports that identify what we can expect that's taking place around us. Already we are seeing major impacts of this, especially along the coast of Africa that faces the Indian Ocean as well. Next slide, please. Yeah. Now, this again, colleagues, I raise. This is from NASA, a United States of America agency, publishing data that's of significant importance to us, those that live in this territory. Colleagues, we need to be producing this type of information and sharing amongst ourselves as a way of enjoining ourselves together. Yeah. So I make this point continuously because many of the scientists that are involved in producing this work, they draw or even have citizenship of the territories that we represent itself, or the countries that we're from. Next slide, please. So, colleagues, as I draw these to a conclusion, I'm sorry I had to run past this. I was already also a little bit scared. Connectivity in South Africa is under serious problems. We also have problems of energy security. And because of that, our electricity supply is not constant. Yeah. So just by expressing that in that form, South Africa is the most industrialized country on the continent of Africa. And we are experiencing those problems at this point in time. There's a lot more that we can do together, working together towards those ends that establish. I really like the way in which the ISCS framed this discussion itself, but I would encourage, it's not just necessary for some. Colleagues, it's necessary for all of us in this changing world to reconcile our perspectives to the type of challenges that confront us. I think there's a lot of scope of us working together in terms of redressing the problems and, of course, encouraging an Indian Ocean Rim Association that works for us all. Thank you very much, colleagues, and thanks for your patience with me. Last slide, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Dr. Rashigan. It's a very serious issue, and it's a one really feels afraid of what is happening, and you are really making it cautious to everybody. One has to really look into the matter, and hopefully we can have a further discussion after the end of this, all the deliberations. Thank you once again. Now may I request Dr. Chulani Atenaike from Institute for South Asian Studies, Singapore.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure, and so far the panel has been really interesting. So I will also shed some light into why I think IORA is important in the 21st century. I will be looking at, I think, more on the more traditional, non-traditional security perspective. But to be honest, I think Dr. Maharaja's presentation threw us all out of the general discussion what we have on IORA or any other regional organizations for that matter. Now, Indian Ocean region as a whole has 56 independent states, including littoral and hinterland states. And there are some small islands like British Indian Ocean territories, Chagos, archipelagos, which are physically in the region, but actually legally territories of external states like Great Britain or France, etc. And interestingly, all these countries are not members of the Indian Ocean region of Rim Association. So I think Dr. Maharaj also slightly pointed out that this association came into the purview after post-Cold War as a burst of enthusiasm for regionalism. It began with 14 countries, and now it has 23 countries plus 7 dialogue partners. But the original goal of the multilateral forum was to connect the littoral states of the Indian Ocean for economic cooperation. But since 2012-13, after India took chairmanship, the association has expanded its goal to 6 priority areas for cooperation: maritime safety, security, trade and investment facilitation, fisheries management, etc. So I think for me, in my presentation, the importance is about maritime safety and security. Let me, I'm sure there are a lot of reasons why IORA is important in the 21st century. So let me highlight a couple of points. One is it's the growing strategic importance of the Indian Ocean region. Indian Ocean region is emerging as an important strategic space, and the rise of China and India, as well as the strong growth of industrialization in several ASEAN economies, has contributed to the increasing significance of maritime trade, energy and resource flows along the Indian Ocean. At present, about 50% of the global container traffic and 80% of the world's seaborne oil pass through the sea lanes of the Indian Ocean. And it also, its importance is also heightened by China and India's competition for regional influence. China's engagement in the Indian Ocean region increased since early 2000s with massive investments in ports and other related infrastructure in India's neighboring countries. China has made its presence visible. So, since Beijing sent its ships for counter patrolling, joint patrolling for against piracy threats off the coast of Somalia, Beijing has proved that it is here in the Indian Ocean to stay. So it's not going to be, it's not going to go anywhere. We have to somehow manage its presence as it is. The maritime road component of the China's Belt and Road program passes along the Indian Ocean, and this has, as we all know, it has become one of the major strategic factors in the current geopolitical scenario. So, and we see India is aiming to counterbalance China by expanding its naval fleet, deepening cooperation with the ASEAN region via ACTIS policy, and most recently joining hands with the US, Australia, and Japan in quadrilateral dialogue, which is seemingly a strategic security partnership to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific region. The strategic scenario in the Indian Ocean region is therefore characterized by ever-increasing trade and energy flows on one hand, and by great power in competition on the other hand. Second important factor for me about the Indian Ocean region is the security threats in the region. Indian Ocean region hosts nearly 35% of global population and is vulnerable to the rise of both traditional and non-traditional security factors. According to Heidelberg Conflict Barometer, 40% of the world's conflicts are in this region, and many maritime security threats are linked to political instability or conflicts. The region has the highest number of failed states and conflicts in the world. Failed states such as Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen are plagued with political instability, leading to maritime security issues that effectively has great impact on security of the sea lanes of communication. And there are multiple rivalries among nation states, like the rivalry between Iran and the Arab states, India, Pakistan, etc. And I'm sure the last week's Taliban takeover of Kabul is going to add additional security layer to everything that is happening in the region. And sub-regions in the Middle East and South Asia are center of gravities for extremist and radical groups such as ISIS and Al-Qaeda. I think it was briefly touched upon by the ambassador as well. The second security threat is the non-traditional security factors, such as there are security issues such as poverty, marginalization, human and drug trafficking, piracy, terrorism, etc. Piracy originating from Somalia, for instance, threatened to disrupt the flow of oil from Persian Gulf to choke the global trade and are crossing the Indian Ocean. Additionally, the region is also faced issues of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, natural disasters, and forced migration. These issues, everything is transnational in nature and therefore significant to individuals. Their significance to individual states vary. However, the response it calls for collaborative regional cooperation and response. The third factor is the regional diversity. Indian Ocean region is a heterogeneous region with an intense diversity in cultures. Each of the states have their differing national interests due to differing political perspectives, ideologies, culture, economic status, social and religious makeup. And they will act to ensure their national interests and define their relationship with one another. As a result, Indian Ocean Region Association also as an organization disaggregated. The members are geographically disconnected compared to land-based groupings such as ASEAN or European Union. So this makes the functioning for IORA a little bit difficult. A final point for me why IORA is important in the 21st century is that for the small states like Sri Lanka, Maldives to provide a platform to voice their concerns and issues. small states by definition has very little political power on their own. As a collective only they gain more attention and power. So and amidst multiple great power rivalries, small states have their own issues and concerns which need individual attention. However, for these countries, it's much more easier for them to voice these concerns in regional platforms, multilateral forums, rather than trying to resolve these issues in bilateral formats. Now, what IORA can do with this regard? One is making initiative to conceptualize Indian Ocean region as a strategic area. As I explained earlier, there are multiple sub-regional sub-regions and organizations within the Indian Ocean region that has led for the region to be a geographically distant space. Given the diverse makeup amongst the regional states and external powers, the interests are divergent, and the region does not identify itself as a unified geographic place. So IORA actually can facilitates in bringing all the Indian Ocean countries under its membership and driving them for coordinated efforts. Regional security cooperation has been organized. A second thing that IORA can do is coordinating efforts to address security issues. Regional security cooperation has been organized at the sub-regional levels, such as South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Africa, and Persian Gulf. Yet many of the issues discussed above are cross-regional. As a result, an integrated approach is needed to address these issues, and IORA should implement a multidimensional approach in developing a framework to address them. It is important that the member states recognize the importance of cooperation to achieve a win-win outcome in challenging maritime security environment. See, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, IORA has identified maritime security and safety as a key priority area. Since then, it has taken several efforts to discuss maritime security issues extensively. IORA has been addressing them in the Indian Ocean through a broad range of activities to enhance international cooperation in security and governance to successfully tackle non-traditional challenges, including the working group and subgroup meetings they have. Another thing that India, IORA, can do is to work together to maintain stability and neutrality in the region. As the Indian Ocean is becoming center stage of the great power struggle, it calls for IORA member states to work together to maintain the stability and neutrality of the Indian Ocean region. Chair also mentioned, and I think afterwards it was again mentioned about how Sri Lanka pioneered in 1971 to bring the proposal to declare Indian Ocean as a zone of peace. And as we know that UN resolution did not make much impact, but IORA can renew this initiative by establishing a regional framework which emphasizes freedom of navigation and overflight in the Indian Ocean region. The great power competition in the Indian Ocean region is therefore an opportunity for IORA to assert itself and declare the strategic neutrality of the region. Why this? What role Sri Lanka can play? One is IORA, as I said, is a platform for Sri Lanka to take forward its renewed interest in identifying itself as a maritime identity. Even though Sri Lanka was a champion in promoting Indian ocean affairs soon after the independence, over the course of the following decades, Sri Lanka mostly identified itself as a South Asian country, and its Indian Ocean identity slightly got disconnected. Since the end of the war in 2009, Sri Lanka is emphasizing on its Indian Ocean identity and try to link it with its economic and strategic interests. So IORA can be a platform for Sri Lanka to do this. I hope like my presentation was informative enough, and I'm happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Dr. Chulani. It was a very comprehensive and exhaustive paper about the IORA. Maybe you can have the question after the last presentation by Dr. Rashida ma'am. Rashida madam, please, you can start, madam. Yeah, you can.
Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for this organizing this seminar and inviting me to present some aspects. I'm going to be looking at the stand from the Maldivian point of view and its involvement in strengthening maritime cooperation and security coordination. First of all, I'm going to begin with a statement by naval strategist Alfred Thayer Mahan, who emphasized the importance of the Indian Ocean. And he said, whoever, quote, whoever controls the Indian Ocean dominates Asia. This ocean is the key to the 7 seas in the 21st century. The destiny of the world will be decided in these waters. Now, when you listen to this statement, it's nothing new, per se, you might say. But my purpose in bringing this particular statement is that it's a powerful statement regarding the future of Indian Ocean. And I think perhaps beyond our current thinking and imagination. So something new to think about for the future. Now, what does the Maldives do about IORA or strengthening the cooperation and coordination? Now, at the international level, as the elected president of the General Assembly, Foreign Minister Shahid, Abdullah Shahid, had assured that he would ensure at the General Assembly, he would ensure that the stability, security, and prosperity of the Indian Ocean remain intact. He said that to achieve this end, Maldives needs to make sure that the wealth is not taken away from the Indian Ocean and that the territories are not used by non-state actors, such as terrorists, mercenaries, pirates, and narco-terrorists, the drug dealers. Now, the government's stand and the Maldives' responsibility on maritime security and cooperation in the Indian Ocean is emphasized very clearly in a recent interview again by the foreign minister to the printer, the newspaper, in July 2021. He said that the Maldives will remain at the heart of the Indian Ocean. Heart of the Indian Ocean meaning it is in the ocean itself. It's not a literal state. It's right there in the ocean. And since that because it is in the ocean itself, he feels that perhaps Maldives has a very big responsibility, and it must ensure that the region does not get turned into a zone of conflict or is used by non-state actors, as mentioned before. So, due to its location, in the Indian Ocean, the government recognizes the country's responsibility to the region. But then, of course, it's a very small island nation. So how much can it do to overcome maritime insecurity and so on? But we need to work. That's the stand. To maintain security and coordination, Maldives relies on the trilateral maritime security cooperation agreement at the level of the national security advisors between India, Maldives, and Sri Lanka. So at a more specific level, this is what the Maldives is doing. It has the trilateral meeting with these two countries. The purpose of the trilateral maritime cooperation, maritime security cooperation, is to avoid the abuse of power, abuse of the territory, to promote international cooperation, especially among the immediate neighbors, and cooperation within the country is also important. So for this purpose, the trilateral dialogue is important. And also the choosing the two countries. Now, why did the Maldives choose these two countries to be part of the trilateral dialogue or part of any dialogue? The reason was that Sri Lanka is actually level of national security. The purpose of trilateral maritime security is to avoid, as I said, abuse. The reason for using these two countries, Sri Lanka is the closest neighbor, and India is the close and the largest neighbor. And so the Indian Ocean region is important. It feels working with them is very important. The trilateral agreement was, the position is to maintain order in the Indian Ocean. Now, the government said any change in the political, economic, and ecological dynamics in Indian Ocean will have a magnifying impact on the Maldives. Now, these specific arrangements, which I will talk about in a little later, the specific arrangements for the trilateral meeting. Now, it helps the purposes to achieve certain purposes. For example, one of the purposes is to provide Maldives and Sri Lanka access to the Indian long-range identification and tracking data to monitor and track their own flagged merchant vessels. Another purpose or aspect is utilization of the merchant ship information system for exchange of unclassified information on what's called white shipping, which is a fair and safe shipping procedure. Then a third one is sharing automatic identification system data in a trilateral format over the merchant ship information system. Now, these specific arrangements are significant against the backdrop of recent developments in India's southern neighborhood. India in the recent years has been feeling that both of its southern neighbors, that would be Sri Lanka and the Maldives, had been drifting away from its cooperative and advisory framework. It was particularly evident after the Fourth Elam War in the case of Sri Lanka, and since the controversial transfer of power in 2012 in the Maldives. Now, so concurrently during that time, China was getting closer to these two states gradually, actually, in terms of strategic, economic, political, and cultural engagements. As everyone knows, the countries began to be apprehensive about China's interest in the Indian Ocean, reaching, in my opinion, sometimes to a paranoid level in some instances. China's interest in the Maldives is not surprising, as it is strategically located in the Indian Ocean, with the southernmost island of Guam being only 240 miles north of the American base in Diego Garcia. Besides, the 8th degree channel that's important for ocean trade passes through the Maldives. So because of its strategic location, China's involvement in the Maldives was not surprising and also expected. Now, China's interest and engagement had been steadily increasing over the years. China set up its embassy in the Maldives in 2011, just to give you a brief account of its involvement so that it's clear to people what it takes. And has since been lobbying, I wouldn't say now, had been lobbying hard to get involved in the development of infrastructure in some of the strategically located islands of the archipelago. Now, Chinese tourists accounted 3 years ago for more than 1/4 of all foreign travelers. This is before COVID hit the world. It has also made a lasting impact on the cultural front by designing, financing, and building the Maldives National Museum, which has been operating since July 2010. Now, what's the purpose of all this? What has this got to do with Indian Ocean security? So my point is that with means of helping the country, or with the I wouldn't call it even pretense, as some people would say, helping to the country, the Indian Ocean security may be a threat, perhaps as some people see it, and perhaps as some people say China will never be a rival. I will go into this a little bit later in a minute. During the previous administration, China was able to persuade the government to sign a memorandum of understanding to comply with the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as to obtain contracts for infrastructure development. Now, the Maldivian government's relationship with China and India is a little bit strange. Strange in the sense that it fluctuates depending on the governing party or governing coalition. For example, from November 2008 to 2012, China was not very successful in building a binding and close relationship with the government, because the president at that time, Mohammad Nasheed, leaned heavily towards India as the Maldives' main ally. But during the following administration, during President Yamin's government, November 2013 to 2018, this relationship deteriorated drastically. And now again, with the coming to power of the Maldivian Democratic Party, the coalition is in Democratic Party and its coalition, the government is heavily dependent on India. But one thing remaining constant is that when it comes to the security of the Indian Ocean, as well as the security of the Maldives, India stands out. China was never considered replacing India in this regard. This understanding springs from India's neighborhood first policy and Maldives' India first policy. That's the present government's policy. So in conclusion, I would point out that for the present, maritime security cooperation is based on mainly on the trilateral agreement between India, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, and perhaps other agreements might develop amongst other countries of the Indian Ocean. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rashida ma'am. We really appreciate your last words. For India's first policy is Maldives, as well as Maldives' first policy is India, and that's why one can see at the Bombay airport the big hoardings about Mumbai Maldives flights are going regularly, and this was a really good sign, a very positive sign as far as India and Maldives are concerned. With this, I won't say much since our ambassador sir is there. May I request all the panelists, we can have some questions or discussions or the queries which are there posted on the channel or the post box. Coconut, could you see any questions or any queries? Or you can have just discussion like any queries are there?
I think why don't you lead Rajesh ji with some questions which can be, then everybody can participate.
Yeah. No, yes, but then what I was thinking, particularly when we are thinking about the Indian Ocean Rim Association, what about those countries who are the SIDs, small island developing states? Are they really going to get a justice with the routine, the structure and the function of the IORA states? In that case, we have to really concern about the small island states, Sri Lanka, Maldives, or for example, Mauritius. These are the three primary states which I think we should address as a from Indian perspective. Anybody can. Sir, you can begin with sir, your experience.
I think Rashida madam might like to say something, and then it's a really typically small island country is Maldives, and Maldives has been wanting to take a lead.
Can you repeat the question? What the small country should do, or how it should tackle it? What was the question, please?
Ma'am, it was regarding when we have the IORA.
Yes.
In the process, in the deliberation, in the structure and the function operating system, are we really going to take care of the small island developing states, for example, Maldives, Mauritius, or Sri Lanka? So you can discuss about Maldives. What is your opinion? Are you really very much satisfied as a representative of Maldives, the functioning of the IORA?
I haven't been to the history of IORA from before, but I don't know if anything is functioning that well with regard to Indian Ocean, matters. So from a small country's point of view, I suppose I wouldn't say it's helpful, but then Maldives is not in such danger as, for example, like Sri Lanka, and then the larger countries like Bangladesh and so on. So I think Maldives tend to be neglected because it's okay. It's that paradise. People think it's paradise. So let them live on the beach. Nothing will happen. There's no threat, and so on. So I think it is neglected because it is a small state. It is tiny, smallest state in the Indian Ocean, this part of Indian Ocean, and then it is relatively safe. Relatively.
Yes, I think
Yeah,
from yes, I think as I said in my presentation also, for small countries, the concerns when it comes to the security issues in the Indian Ocean can be slightly different from a big power like India. One of the major concerns that get a lot of attention is the great power conflict. And in addressing something like that, definitely a multilateral platform like IORA helps small countries to get together and raise their concerns in a multilateral platform rather than trying to resolve these issues through bilateral in a bilateral format. But on the other hand, I think I agree with Dr. Rashida's statement that small countries tend to get neglected in the entire process of discussion of issues in the Indian Ocean region. For instance, when we are discussing of the issues such as climate change, small countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives are the most affected. But in the major discussion, again, they don't tend to get the leadership in highlighting the specific concerns that they are facing in these kind of things. Again, I mean, it is also the responsibility of the small states to come forward and their voice heard. As I mentioned in my presentation also, for a period of time, Sri Lanka has been doing it. During 1970s, Sri Lanka championed in the Indian Ocean affairs. Prime Minister Sirimao Bandaranaike was influential in declaring, in bringing forward the proposal for declaring Indian Ocean as a zone of peace. But over the time, we have seen that other issues have taken over the priorities, and Sri Lanka has not continued to take the leadership in highlighting the small states issues. So, in my opinion, IORA is a very good platform for the small states if they make use of it to raise the concerns in a collective format.
Okay. Thank you. Ambassador Mukesh sir, please.
You want me to say something?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think what I really understand from the current, whether it is news, media, or in terms of concrete cooperation, one does get a feeling that Indian Ocean Rim Association is not really very active. For whatever reason, I don't know whether India needs to take more proactive action, which is action-oriented, outcome-oriented. Maybe the countries are too many and interests are varied, so there hasn't been much effort in terms of aligning common interests. That also needs a serious brainstorming. And given current scenario, is my voice okay? Or
yeah, Rashida madam, Dr. Rashida ma'am, can you mute yourself?
Sorry?
Yeah, currently I do not see that seriousness, considering India's very strong interest in the Indian Ocean. So I do feel that Indian Ocean, if it is named as Indian, it is incumbent on India to show that it's actually it has a deep interest, and obviously the host country too. In this case, Mauritius, host country has to also lead the agenda. It has various advantages. It is actually, in a sense, even though it's part of the Indian Ocean, it's also a neutral ground for everyone. It has had good contacts in the past with European powers, starting from Dutch. Everybody has been, there at some point of time, though the French and Britishers primarily really ruled there. So that being the case, I think Mauritius must take a rule, this thing. Whichever countries are not yet members, they need to be persuaded. The outcome should also be made known. Because, today's world where people try to run countries try to run their foreign policies through tweet. If you're not present in the media, then actually you don't exist. And for example, Quad has got some visibility of late. Indo-Pacific, terminology and associated, nuances have got some visibility now. But overall, I do feel that in IORA region, the kind of efforts we should have made collectively and individually, we still have a lot of deficit agenda. And not necessarily only on the strategic or security side, even on the cultural side, social exchanges, economic cooperation, cooperation on crime control, whether it is cyber security or piracy or sea road safety. All of these need attention and focus in today's world, because you don't know where from the threat is coming and from what point you will be attacked. So much has happened in the last 20 years that we need to be wiser to survive.
Thank you very much, sir. Because from the horse's mouth, you are being a senior diplomat. Your words are really matter for all those people who are participant. Just before requesting Dr. Rashigan, may I request those officers, naval officers from the Naval War College, which are affiliated of the University of Mumbai, can also raise a few questions, or they can also participate in the discussion without having any, or without maintaining any kind of protocol, because it is basically made for the scholars and the students who are learning these issues. So now may I request Dr. Rashigan, you have raised the hand, please.
Thank you very much, colleagues. And I think it's been very informative in terms of listening to all of the colleagues share their experiences. This is exactly the point that I think we need to be emphasizing. We are having a conversation. According to the data on my side, 57 people are connected. 1/3 of humanity is far bigger than 57 people, colleagues. All of you can do the math. How are we taking what we are talking about and sharing it amongst the peoples of this territory? And that's where there's a huge amount of possibility. That, for me, is the unrealized potential that lies latent and is open to being taken over by other interests. Colleagues, if we are communicating amongst each other, you already mentioned diasporas exist, but we also have thousands of years of history connecting us together. And these are the parts that I think would really be improved if we communicate more, share each other's experiences. You know, I remain shocked. There have been 2 earth disturbances in South Africa last week. I would have expected, with the type of powers that we have in the Indian Ocean, to read the Indian report about South Africa's condition. No, colleagues, I had to get the report from United States of America. It's very far away. So I keep wanting to emphasize this. We have potential that we need to share. And through us sharing that, it also gives people a sense of confidence in ourselves, working together for ourselves as well. It makes us less prone to being attacked. And I'm sure the ambassador will appreciate the point I make now. Yeah? We can't see some of the threats, especially those that are viral, but we can prevent them from taking over our lives, as we've now seen what COVID has done to us all. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rashigan. Anybody else would like to have any discussion or any comment on any of the paper presented? Anyone from the Naval War College, please? We also received support from the St. Xavier's College of Mumbai. Many students and the faculties of the St. Xavier's College also participated in this discussion. Any student or any faculty of the Xavier's College? Others will wind up. Only one thing I just wanted to raise the issue about the board people. Nobody has discussed since the morning I attended. The board people, the human rights violation which is happening all around the sea route or sea border states. And you can take example about the Cox's Bazar, the Bangladesh-Myanmar border, and how the people, they are being traveling, how this sea route is being used by these refugees. So I think one should also address this concern about the human rights violation. How one can protect the human rights of those people, particularly the children and women who are forced to migrate or who have taken asylum in many countries, but finally nothing is happening. So those important issues also there, and all the time you can't see them as a threat to the security. The threat, it is a threat to the manhood, this, the human rights. Those things I think we should also discuss along with the security strategy and all that. If the Konkana allows, we can we can wind up and we can directly go for the validity session.
Yes, I think, you know, there aren't any questions, but I would like to thank each one of you for, you know, I think the entire conference has been so much of learning. You know, it has been a platform to discuss so many issues. Since morning, you know, we have been addressing issues and been talking about. So I also believe that, you know, to comprehend such an illustrative topic in one-day conference is not sufficient. So I think this program could be, you know, we can think of the yearly chapter also later in collaboration with the associates that we have today with us. And also we can invite more collaborators from, you know, I could see Dr. Maharaja I have read about his organization. So next year when we do it, we would love to collaborate with you. Rashida Muhammad Didi, she's an eminent academician. She has, so much of experience. She could also help us to, get associated. Dr. Chulani can also help us. Of course, we always have support from Ambassador Mule. This conference, of course, had been a learning experience. This conference has been a platform for discussion, and this conference have actually helped us to get appraised and acquaint about, the multidisciplinary approach that today's collaborative organizations have been taken. For example, the first session, Dr. Majumdar briefed us about, the initiative, the department of, the Center of Studies that Mumbai University have undertaken to address, various matters respected to whether Arabian Sea, whether Indian Ocean, different angles, security issues, different. We have launched Sagar Codes today. I know some of you were not there in the morning session, but the Honorable Minister of Education, Skill Training and Entrepreneurship, Government of India, Dr. Dharmendra Pradhan, who himself addressed, and we have been able to launch this e-digest from our institute on Sagar Code to discuss and to debate about, concurrent issues, connectivity, trade, history of those regions, civilization, sustainability, and many more. So we really look forward to, have this chapter as a sustainable one yearly, and also, to take forward our initiatives that, as individuals we have been taken with each of your support. So I would like to thank you, Professor Kharath, most importantly, because sir has been tirelessly working with ISCS for last 2 months, collaborating, connecting, and bringing all of us together under one platform. Ambassador Mule, undoubtedly, sir, has always been very, very supportive. Firstly, thank you so much, sir. In such a short time, you have accepted our invitation and, as always, have supported, I think, institutes, University of Mumbai as well as ISCS in its initiatives. Thank you, Rashida Muhammad Didi, once again for your enriching deliberation, sharing of observation, and of course, attending and supporting. Dr. Maharaja, I think this was the first time we collaborated, but we really look forward to, kind of address your views, ideas, introspect your views, ideas, I would say, more pronouncedly in future time to arrive over more disquisition, more such platforms. And Dr. Chulani Attanayak, thank you so much for being with us. It's a pleasure to have you. I think it's time for us to wrap up. As I said, that it is very difficult to comprehend such an illustrative topic in one-day session. Rajesh sir, no, we understand. I think, we can make it yearly, or, in future, we can have more such conferences, invite more people. As I really liked what Ambassador Mule said, that Indian Ocean, as the name suggests, the incumbency doesn't like only India, but of course the associate region should also take equal initiative for the development of the region and to facilitate trade connectivity for the sustainability of the residents and people around that area. I'm sure more would be taken care. We will also have, as we have launched so many platforms today, to have more discussion and disquisition on various perspectives surrounding the Indian Ocean. Thank you so much, each one of you. I know many people have been asking me since the morning that how do we catch hold of this. I would like to say that the entire recording and entire conference would be made available to you at our YouTube link. So please do like and subscribe ISCS India. Thank you so much once again. Now I would like to request Professor Murthy from Jawaharlal Nehru Rajkiya Mahavidyalaya JNRM Port Blair, who are also an associate organization for today's international web-based conference. Professor Murthy, to please appraise us with your views and for your Thanksgiving. Professor Murthy, over to you. Murthy sir, is there a network issue or something? I know he's there. The microphone is also on, but is there a network issue from your end, sir?
I think you can request anybody from that college.
Why not, sir? Professor Kharath, why don't you take this privilege? You have been a partnering organization, and University of Mumbai has, really helped us, support us, and been tirelessly working. I know I've bothered you so much in the Institute, but it has been such a privilege to, in this pandemic time, in this difficult situation, we are in amid, or I don't know, we are on the conclusive phase of this second wave, and I don't know how much more that we have to go through, but in amid of such a situation, we have been able to collaborate and present such a wonderful platform to our followers and, researchers, young scholars. So, Professor Kharat, why don't you take this opportunity? We'll be glad if you do the needful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kankana. Let me first say sorry, very sorry for morning, because our Honorable Vice Chancellor, we had a very important meetings. As far as me is concerned, my network was not working here, and so I was totally withdrawn from the program. So both the time, Honorable Vice Chancellor and the Dean University of Mumbai were not there in the one of the major function, but somehow our other Dean, Dr. Anudra Mujumdar, she was there and she could manage to participate on behalf of the University of Mumbai. Let me formally thank the ICCS and then the Minister of Education, Dharmendra Pradhan sir, Dr. Shakti Sinha sir, who served actually in Andaman Nicobar and Goa, so he knows about the all Indian Ocean thing since 80s and 90s. Then very importantly, we also sincerely thanks Dr. Suhas Pednekar, who was the Vice Chancellor of the University of Mumbai, who joined for 30 minutes, but he has to leave. Along with that, all the participants were very great participants like Admiral Shekhar Sinha sir. Everybody knows Shekhar Sinha sir. His contribution to the seaport Chabahar in Iran, and who has mentored the India's naval strategy also with the government, in the previous government, the present government. Everywhere he's there. So we have such a wonderful people who really learn even at this age from those seniors. Then at the same time, Professor Air Commander Chaudhary sir from Bangladesh, he was also there. His ideas was totally different, but then we really appreciate he has taken a very neutral view about the Bangladesh, Myanmar, India, and we really learned. And those people came in here and said something to us. Then along with that, there are many other people who have joined. I can't remember immediately. But in this panel, everybody actually we have learned from each other. Particularly Ambassador D.M. Mule sir, he was not only the former India's High Commissioner to the Maldives, he was also full-fledged secretary to the another department. I forgot about the thing. He was in Ministry of External Affairs. Then all those people, particularly who have joined, I literally forced my students from JNU, who has participated, more than 26 students from the JNU School of International Studies, Center for South Asian Studies. They have joined. I also express my sincere thanks to the Commandant Venkatraman sir, Rear Admiral Venkatraman sir, for allowing their officers from the Naval War College to participate in the whole day program. Maybe they are having the half-day program there, but here in this program, they have to be there the whole day. Like that, then St. Xavier's College Vice Principal Pratibha Natyani ma'am, she was also there. She also came with the students. Like that, so many students and the faculties all around India, they have participated. Particularly Rashigan Maharaj was from South Africa. We were expecting somebody from some other zone or continent, but he has participated, represented African continent, along with the Dr. Chulani, Dr. Rashida, Didi Madam, everybody. I really sincerely thanks on behalf of the University of Mumbai, on behalf of Rajkiya Mahavidyalaya, as well as ICSE. With this, I think if Kunkana allows, then we can stop here, or if he has joined, we don't know.
Professor Murthy, would you like to share your ideas? Mute your microphone. Is there some error, I think? Okay, we are not being able to hear him well. I think there's some network issues. But on behalf of the Institute of Social and Cultural Studies and all the collaborative partners, University of Mumbai and JNRM Port Blair, a sincere thank you to all of you for attending, participating, and being with us. We look forward to a cordial relation and your encouragement and association with collaborative endeavors as well as the institute's activities in future too. Of course, University of Mumbai now has their own department, where perspectives will be dealt. Institute has its own e-digest, which will be coming. The information regarding the e-digest, which includes participants national and international level, to direct and address and debate about various perspectives surrounding the region over a click very, very soon. I think Professor Kharat would also agree with Institute's idea of having such a platform on a yearly basis, so that we can discuss, monitor the progress, and share ideas about the region and its progress. So thank you so much for being there. As said, we are available. You can write to us if you have any query regarding the conference. If you have any further ideas to share with us, please feel free to write and connect. We shall also communicate regarding our endeavors with you. And of course, you would get the entire recording and everything regarding the today's event on our YouTube channel, ISCS India. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. And we look forward to your association, your support in future to come. Thank you so much for being with us. Warm regards and stay safe, stay well. Thank you so much.